Good morning, everyone. Well, I guess I'm sorry, you guys. It's the afternoon. See, I'm used to it being morning when I do these things. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome into our November webinar. It is about 104, so I'm just going to make sure I gather things and give about 1 minute, 105. Don't want to hold you all too long, but if you would like to just hop in the chat or even come off mute, introduce yourself or, share where you're coming from, that'd be great. If not, I understand. But if you haven't been here before, my name is Camron Lipford. I am the youth coordinator for North Carolina Families United. I have been doing these webinars now for a little over a month, or we have as a team, but I've lately taken a more precedent. If you hear those noises, that is my dog. Her name is Amelia. She was just sleeping, but as soon as she hears somebody's voice, she thinks it's about her. So she might get a little, might join in. All right, let me get my. All right, Heather, if you could just let me know if you guys see the presentation. I did start sharing the screen. Okay, cool. Well, like I said, my name is Cameron Lipford, and I'm here to talk to you guys today actually about a couple of things. So there's a lot of observances, I'm sorry, in November that I thought would be great to highlight to kind of try to tie into everything that I'll be talking a little bit about today. But if you did not know, I have them on the screen here. It's National Adoption Month, National Runaway Prevention Month, and National Homeless Youth Awareness Month. And then the big one, or the main topic that I've chosen to kind of bring in today, is that November is National Family Caregivers Month. Um, Across all of these themes is one shared truth, right? Caregivers, whether it be parents, relatives, mentors, or community members, are the backbone and resilience for young people. So today we'll explore a little bit of those connections between caregiving, incarceration, um, adoption, homelessness, the culture and the advocacy that comes with it, and then most importantly, how we can support these youth and families with dignity, compassion, and hope. I'm just laughing because I don't know why she picked this time to. She's literally rolling around on the carpet. But anyways, yes. So National Family Caregivers Month, right? If you guys didn't know, of course, a little background. A caregiver is any person who consistently supports someone who cannot fully care for themselves, right? And we may know this, but what the National Family Caregivers Month for is just honoring caregivers across the nation, um, recognizing young adult caregivers, and knowing that there's 14 million caregivers in the US that are under the age of 24, just like me. I'm not under 24 anymore, but as far as my caregiving journey, I did start at a young age, about 22, or whatnot. Taking care of my brother and sister, though, as a young adult. I'm caregiver, mostly my brother. He moved in with me as a senior in high school. Um, And, that's the whole story I could obviously talk about another day, but just understanding I'm definitely part of that demographic that did have to, unfortunately experience that thing. I say unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time. It helped me be the person I definitely am today, right? But this experience has shown me both the weight and the beauty of having that, right? Just give me 1 second. There's actually somebody at my door, Heather. Okay, never mind. They took care of it. But like I said, this month is meaningful to me personally. It has shown me, like I said, both the weight and the beauty of the caregiving, right? The late nights, the advocacy, appointments, the emotional labor, love, strength, and resilience that it comes with. So today I'm not only honoring caregivers, right? But I'm honoring the version of myself who has learned, grown, struggled, and persisted in this role. And I honor every young caregiver who steps into this responsibility long before they should have to. And like we know, right? Caregiver, there can be a lot of roles or what you would call it. Could be, your general, normal, what you would consider a caregiver, which is typically a parent, right? A sibling in my case, grandparent relative. I also lived with my grandmother and my aunt, so whole family dynamic, right? Adoptive or foster parent, young adult caregiver for siblings, like it says, friend or community member, mentor or supportive adult, unpaid caregiver or paid direct care worker. A caregiver does not need to be biologically related or legally recognized, right? We understand that. And I think a lot of, well, probably one of the biggest areas I feel like people may not know this is that, um, even sometimes as friends, you end up becoming kind of caregivers for your friends, right? So understanding that. Hmm. So what is the vital role of caregivers, right? Like, we can obviously say the general thing, keep, people fed, keep people's health taken care of, those kind of things, right? But they're the unsung heroes of supporting some of the most vulnerable youth and people, right, in our communities. They provide emotional stability and support vulnerable youth, like we talked about. Young adult caregivers often take on these responsibilities early, of course, and research consistently shows that one stable, supportive adult is the strongest protective factor for a child navigating adversity. Caregivers provide emotional stability, safety, structure, and unconditional support, especially when a young person is facing trauma or uncertainty. Consistent caregiving relationships improve resilience, and we have seen that as well. So, for youth impacted by parental incarceration, homelessness, or foster care involvement, right? Some of the things that November is trying to highlight. Caregivers often step in during moments of crisis. Their support can literally change the trajectory of a young person's life. For many caregivers, including young adult caregivers like myself, the responsibility begins early and often unexpectedly. We step in not because the path is easy, but because the people we love need us to show up. And I'm going to share a little bit more about my story here in a moment, but that's definitely how it was for me as far as it being unexpected. I thought maybe there might come a day in my life that that would happen, but I definitely was not ready. So I was like, since I'm not ready, it has to be unexpected, right? But basically, just understanding how much these caregivers can mean. And we're actually going to watch a video here shortly that I resonate with. She was like, they say they call me caregiver. They say caregiver. I'm mom. I mean, and that's what I feel like at most times. I'm like, you might as well just call me mom because that's basically what it feels like. But yeah. So youth with incarcerated parents, right? And the caregivers that take care of them. More than 5 million children in the US have had a parent incarcerated at some point. This means that in almost every classroom, every youth program, every community space, there are children quietly carrying this experience. These youth often face shame, stigma, confusion. They may grieve someone who is still alive but not present. Whew. Yeah, that's a line. Caregivers, whether relatives, foster parents, or mentors, hold the responsibility of helping them process these emotions. Caregivers are the bridge between a child's pain and their healing. They help maintain routines, communicate with schools, encourage positive family connections where possible, and create space for children to make sense of their story, right? So for my family, having a father who was incarcerated meant navigating many things, uncertainty, difficult conversations, emotional heaviness. Caregivers like me have to step into multiple roles, whether that be emotional support, an advocate, provider, and protector, just as any, traditional or non-traditional, I guess you would say, caregiver has to do, right? This is the reality for many families across the country. So I am going to take a pause right here. If anybody has any comments or anything, that'd be great. And then I'm getting ready to share the video I was talking about with you guys. And this is a video done by some youth and a program that they were able to kind of document their experience being a youth with an incarcerated parent. It is a little bit of an older video, but it's still very, very, very relevant. So while I get that up, like I said, if anybody has anything they want to add in the chat, come off mute, say anything, you are definitely welcome to at this moment. While I get the video ready. All right, here we go.
When someone goes to prison, there's a loss there. It's a loss like no other loss because it's a loss that doesn't have the typical comforting rituals that people have with other losses. So when someone dies, you have a funeral and someone brings you a casserole. When someone goes to prison, nobody's bringing you a casserole. Nobody's saying, oh, I'm so sorry that this happened. In fact, many folks will sort of avoid you.
There's a lot of guilt that many grandparents feel. Often they feel that they are responsible for whatever has happened to their own children.
You know, everybody loves kids and puppies, but the truth of the matter is that it's the adult relationships that are the ones that we have to really pay attention to.
Alright, we're the young geniuses behind Echoes of Incarceration. We're doing a bunch of these short advocacy films, and our first topic was grandparenting.
We all feel strong about this topic because we all lived with our grandparents at one point in our life.
I think for the grandparent, it's stressful, and it takes a toll on them mentally and physically and emotionally.
The grandparent piece is the one we could all relate to the most. Myself, I was raised by my grandmother.
I think we all started about this thinking about grandparenting. I think that was our first impulse. And I think it was really Ann Adela's-Estrin, our advisor, who said, well, this should really be expanded to all caregivers. And I think there was a moment we all realized that Francis is a child of an incarcerated parent, but he's also a caregiver.
And I just realized that me and the grandparents are in the same boat. I mean, there's incarceration, and then there are kids who need love, and we have to do the best we can.
First, my name is Cherie Simmons, and I'm taking care of two of my grandchildren.
I have only one grandchild. I've been taking care of her ever since she's 3 months old. She's 30 years old now.
My name's Francis, and I've been a caregiver for my 8-year-old brother and 10-year-old sister since my mother had been incarcerated.
I always thought it was funny people call me a caregiver. I'm the mother. My children were 2 and 6 when their dad went to prison.
When I first found out that I had to care for them, I wasn't excited about it. Their father was away. They had been taken away from their mother by ACS, and it was just sort of traumatic at the time.
While my daughter was being handcuffed in the courthouse, they had an advocate from for the children, and they asked them, well, we're gonna put them in foster care. I told the advocate, do not put your hands on them. I'm taking them. Me and my son is gonna take care of them. We don't need you to put them in. Well, we're gonna put them in. No, you're not putting my grandkids anywhere. I had to let my job know what was going on. I think the job was the hardest part for me, trying to explain to strangers why I was gonna take so much time off.
There was time that people will judge how did she get involved into a situation that she did.
And a lot of people were kind of negative about me taking care of the children, mainly because I was a paternal grandmother.
When you go to prison or when a family member go to prison, people don't want to be around you for the most part. Some family members don't even come around.
There was a time with my son where, you know, he would be in school and the teachers, anytime there was a problem, they would think he must be the problem because his dad was in prison, so probably there was something wrong with him too.
At the same time, you don't get to move on with your personal goals and aspirations. You have to put everything on hold to make sure these kids are all right.
We always wanted to do this piece based on appreciating our grandparents, but it wasn't always easy.
When it comes to living with grandparents, definitely not the easiest thing.
I know for me, the generation gap is a big struggle.
My own grandmother used to tell me I was gonna end up like my father, and I didn't really appreciate that.
Yes, there are times when I feel like my grandmother took her anger out on me and it had nothing to do with me.
Me being in this position now, I understand how stressful that could have been for my grandmother at the point.
Part of this piece was just basically to explore some of the difficult moments of being raised by a grandparent.
You know, I think one of the hardest things for caregivers is to be able to not take out your own problems, issues, stresses, prejudices on your children.
When it gets too crazy for me, that's how I know for a fact it's definitely crazy for them if I can't handle it.
I was very angry at my daughter, and I know that that anger I transfer it to my granddaughter sometime. Why? I really can explain that, but you know, when you try your very best to bring a child up the proper way and things don't turn out the way that you expect them, you do get very angry.
We never told them that their father was incarcerated. We were devastated by the whole idea.
And I didn't want to tell Stacy about it. I just tried to spare her a lot of pain.
We told the truth about where we were, and we told the truth about, kind of the truth about why he was there. What I didn't tell the truth about was how long he would be there.
But it came to the point that I just had to tell her, because you can't hide these things forever.
How they found out was that I was talking to my sister on the phone one day, and I called my son's name and said, "That stupid boy," and ended up in jail. And at the time, his oldest daughter was right there, and she looked at me, and her eyes got big, and she started to cry, and she said, "He's in jail?" Then I had to talk to her.
They trusted us less after that, because eventually children find out the truth, and when they find out that you've lied to them, it's worse. It's even worse than if you had just told them the truth in the first place.
We took them to visit their parent. I wanted them to know who their parents were.
I used to bring her every 3 months so we can visit her in Bedford Hills.
When they became older and he came home and he went back to prison, we didn't go visit him, and they had no desire.
It was difficult going back to the jails with the kids. I would go by myself to visit her. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand seeing her in there with the clothes. I couldn't stand the whole environment, and I didn't see what good it was for me. But eventually I took the kids to go visit my mom, and being able to be there physically for each other, holding her hand with the kids, them drawing, doodling, doing all those little silly things helped. I would try to mix up the televisit with the jail visits. The televisiting is basically like Skyping with my mom. Anything possible to keep my mom connected with us while she was away.
I don't think there's much that's more important than visiting. Now, of course, everybody's had a bad experience, but at the end of the day, being able to see somebody and know that they're okay.
You cannot be the mother or the father, so when you get the chance, you kind of have to let the parents be the parents.
There's always a choice when you think about the needs of children of incarcerated parents. Are you going to serve the children? Are you going to serve the incarcerated parent? Are you going to serve the caregiver? And that choice to serve the caregiver has rarely, if ever, been made. I think having a policy where grandparent caregivers and relative caregivers could receive some subsidies, subsidized guardianships, would be very helpful.
I think caregivers need the same thing other people in stressful situations need, which is being around other people who have the same experience.
I joined quite a few groups. I acquired a lot of knowledge, and that also kept me going.
To air your differences and be able to talk about it. We share whatever we're going through with. We laugh, we cry, we eat. But yeah, I think it's important to get support from others.
In an ideal world, a society that does not stigmatize. An ideal world, systems that actually focus really on the best interest of the children and give all the support to those who are taking care of them.
The only thing that I can say, you love your child, your grandchild, and don't give up, because there's hope.
When people see this video that we're making, I just want people to know that there's grandparents out there that's struggling and that need help.
Our reason for doing this project is so that the grandparents do feel appreciated and know that they're not being ignored.
I hope that grandparents can understand that their grandchildren do appreciate them and everything they do for them. I appreciate my grandparents. I might not show it all the time because they get on my nerve a lot.
Interviewing these grandparents, they're very strong people, and I've just learned to be more strong, if anything. It's sad that we have to be in this position, but this is our reality, and this is not the end of us.
Let it rain, follow the drip. Yeah, hey grandma, hey grandpa, look at your grandson. I don't.
All right. So yeah, that was the video I wanted to share with you all. If anybody has any comments or thoughts or anything, you can put them in the chat or definitely come off mute. But it was a very powerful video, and of course for me, of course having the lived experience in pretty much the exact same way. My grandmother at one point was my caregiver as well, so I definitely understand that. But I just thought it was very heartwarming for them to highlight the experience. And then kind of same thing. They're older now; they probably understand a little more. But like they said, that's not the be all end all. And I think one of the main things that hits home is like what I had said in one of the main slides about how, there's a youth probably in every space that you've been in that unfortunately just holds these kind of things in quietly, or, people just do not know about them, that they struggle with this. So that's what I wanted to share. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I will link it on the resources page that I send out either tonight or tomorrow after the webinar. So yes, let me pull my presentation back up. All right. So moving on a little bit from that part of the webinar as far as the incarceration into the next part of it about intersecting right with caregiving and the fact that this is National Adoption Month, a time to honor adoptive families and the youth that are seeking, permanent homes, right? Many adopted youth have experienced early trauma, loss, or instability before finding a permanent home. Caregivers, especially adoptive families and kinship caregivers, play a crucial role in providing the consistency these youth need, right? These young people have many complicated feelings about family, identity, and belonging. Caregivers also help them navigate these emotions with patience, structure, and understanding. So, of course, we talk about adoption, and it would go hand in hand that Youth Homeless Month and Youth Adoption Awareness Month are also in November at the same time. So as that says there, approximately 4.2 million youth experience homelessness in the United States each year. That is insane. Honestly, almost the same amount of youth who experience parental incarceration, right? Many leave home due to conflict, abuse, rejection, or aging out of foster care. Others become homeless after a caregiver becomes incarcerated or unable to provide stable housing. And when young people lack a stable house or a stable caregiving relationship, they are more likely to face exploitation, mental health challenges, barriers to education. And like we've stated before, though, as long as with the presence of even one supportive adult can dramatically reduce those long-term risks. A caring adult is often the difference between surviving and thriving. When caregivers themselves are young, the risk of instability increases, but so does the determination to keep the family together. My own, role when caring for my siblings while managing family challenges put me directly in the reality many youth face across the nation. I'm not sure about, many of y'all, but at 21, 22, I did not quite have my life together. I was still living paycheck to paycheck. I didn't even understand how I might be able to take care of myself, let alone a younger person, younger sibling, regardless of teenager or not. So that's definitely something I faced. But caregivers need support, resources, and community, not judgment, right? I think that was something that I felt like a lot of the grandmothers or grandparents expressed, is they were worried about the judgment or they had received judgment in the past. So just not passing judgment. There's a little bit of me and my siblings right here in these pictures, just kind of what I've been talking about. My brother and sister are Irish twins as well. They're 11 months apart, so that's interesting because they love each other, but they can also be at the very other end of the spectrum. And that's my father right there in the picture. And then I just thought it was important, at least for me, to include like my graduation picture from high school as well, to show at the time, we are not a statistic. I've definitely prevailed a lot more in my life than I thought, and kind of like what's been told and what they kind of mentioned in the video we watched, right? A lot of times, unfortunately, even maybe the caregivers say, "Oh, you're going to turn out just like your father," or, like for me, I've had people be kind of surprised, I guess you would say, at my success, as you would call it. But for a long time, I do believe that even though I was successful, I was operating out of survival mode, which unfortunately a lot of caregivers, especially youth caregivers, as stated, do, because we don't really have time to, fully address our probably needs and things like that. But I've unfortunately, now that I've gotten older, have learned to do that so I can have more to pour in, not only to my siblings' cup, but to the youth and other families that we are here to support. So that's just a little bit about me, a little bit of visual. Um, let's see. Right. So I know that we talked about how this stuff fits into the communities that we're in, and also having cultural identity, right? Healing doesn't happen in isolation. Community and cultural identity provide young people in general, with a sense of belonging, meaning, and pride. Culturally grounded caregiving validates a youth's identity and helps them feel seen. Community rituals, language, tradition, and shared spaces help young people rebuild hope after trauma. So when caregivers connect youth to their heritage, spiritual beliefs, and community networks, they deepen resilience and strengthen the foundation for long-term well-being. So as a young caregiver myself, right, I've seen how community and cultural identity can serve as anchors. The sense of belonging helps you feel grounded, and it also helps caregivers feel less alone. Culturally rooted support validates our lived experience and strengthens our resilience. And I know that a lot of this, like I said, is here youth, 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 but honestly, we know as adults this is for us as well. So whether you're serving youth and families or you are a caregiver, right? And sometimes I believe that we have caregivers who they have to kind of educate themselves. My siblings and I are Native American. Our mother is Native American. So, I do feel like that was something that we probably missed a lot growing up on, unfortunately, and missed the mark on. And it's not because nobody wanted to educate us, it's because, unfortunately, they weren't educated themselves, right? So just kind of things like that that probably aren't thought about as much. All right. So, how can we advocate and uplift, right? We all have a role in supporting caregivers and youth. Advocacy doesn't always mean lobbying or policy work, though those are important. Advocacy can also look like listening to caregivers and youth with empathy, not just listening, but listening with empathy. And I know sometimes it's hard enough to even get that first part down, but we've all got to work on it, right? Building trauma informed and culturally competent systems, providing trauma informed support, making sure that we're intentional with how we want to support people, not just, wanting to support because we feel like we are there. Like I just talked about, sometimes we need the proper training, whether you are a caregiver or, a person who's providing these kind of services. Building community partnerships, creating safe spaces where youth can express themselves, uplifting their voices and systems that often overlook them. So, an interesting thing, I was just on if you guys have not heard of the Transition Age Youth Subcommittee, it's part of the state collaborative, which we have that information in our website, and you can also find it on the NC Collaborative's website about how to join and get involved. But on the Transition Youth Subcommittee, one thing we were just talking about, having spoken to some youth, um, you know, our definition probably as an adult of a safe space for a youth to express themselves is going to be very different from theirs. And one thing that I guess a youth mentioned, right, that it's not that home isn't a safe space to talk, it just isn't their safe space to talk, if that makes sense. Um, so just understanding that, and of course, uplifting their voices and systems that often overlook them. Unfortunately, no matter how much youth voice is tried to be pushed to the forefront, there's just some barriers and some things that come with that, right? So as a trusted adult or somebody who can get across those barriers, with their best interests in mind, is, always uplift their voice in spaces they are not, just like for anybody else we would, right? Every connection matters, every conversation matters. And one of the most powerful forms of advocacy is storytelling. By sharing my journey, I hope to uplift other caregivers, especially young adult caregivers who often remain unseen in conversations about family support. And that's another thing in the video, right, that they highlighted. She said, I don't think that there's ever, or that I don't think that the caregivers are ever really thought about when it comes to serving. Are we serving the incarcerated parent? Are we serving the child? Are we serving the caregiver? We shouldn't have to choose. We should be serving the whole family. That shouldn't really even be a question. And unfortunately, I know it's easier said than done. That comes with money and other things like that. But just like with any other type of care, we talk about mental health or whatnot, there's no way for, at least in my eyes, it to be a successful, positive transition when only one or two people that are involved in the whole family dynamic are receiving the support and the services that they need. So that's just a little bit of my spiel there. So, so a little bit of a call to action for you guys today. If you've been on the webinars, you know that I typically like to do that. I think it's best to end that way. But just remember to honor caregivers this month, right? Um, Thank you to caregivers who are showing resilience every day. Your work strengthens families and communities. Together we uplift, advocate, and connect, right? So I invite you to reflect on the three commitments of honor caregivers. Many carry invisible burden and show incredible strength. To support family-centered policies, policies that strengthen families, help prevent system involvement in homelessness, and stay engaged. Join groups, volunteer, advocate, or simply check in on a caregiver or a young person in your community. Together, we can build systems and communities where youth and families are supported, uplifted, and never alone. And with that being said, I just want to thank everyone for being here today and for the work that you all do every day. This is our information right here on the screen. And then, like I said, if anybody has any questions or comments, we can definitely be open to that now. A little bit of shorter webinar today, but I hope it was as impactful for you all as it was for me to present. Oh, well, hold on. Let me stop sharing that. I don't know why it went away. Powerful. Shouldn't have went away. Okay, there we go. I'll bring it.
This is a great job, Cameron. Um, did you um did you relate to the young man on the video? Yeah.
Yes, I did. For sure. That's why I was saying that. His grandmother raised him, but then of course he was saying it trickled down to him.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the care of a caregiver and then became a caregiver of his siblings as well. So I definitely related to that, for sure. And I just thought that it was a great highlight, seeing it was done with people with lived experience. Um, and they were able to, it's
Sure.
on YouTube with quite a bit of views and stuff. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I really think that was a touching story, and it did hit a lot of spots and spaces, and I think that I just think it was a really good show of, I guess, integrity of his own. He remembered, gosh, I remember putting my grandmother through this, and now I'm having to go through this, and that's just a normal part of growth. Doing that same thing with my daughter now that has three kids, and I want to get a job, and I'm ready to do this, and I'm ready, and I said, I remember, and I've said that for years, but just this weekend she called and said, Mom, you really do get it, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I remember having three kids and wanting a good job and wanting to go out and work and this and that and the other. And it's like, you know, it they when a person sees it, they see it. And then that's when it becomes like a reality to them. So I think that was really good, a really good show.
For sure, yeah. The commitment, it never ends too. So, once you are in that role, regardless of whatever age, you will forever kind of hold that kind of weight, with your siblings or however you're a caregiver, whether it's your grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever the case may be. It definitely never ends. So, it's about 1:40. I know it's Thanksgiving week, so I just hope everybody is thankful. I hope that everybody has a great Thanksgiving. Once again, I appreciate you all for being here. Leave your any comments or questions, and then we will also send out just a follow-up, like I said, form that will have some resources and information on it for this month. But if you guys have, no other comments or questions, you're welcome to leave and have a great rest of your afternoon and great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mm. Ended at 1:40.